This year, police launched an investigation into whether there'd been a cover-up, and today they revealed they've interviewed more than 20 victims. Dave Guest, who first highlighted the controversy back in 1995, has this special report.
Knowlview was a school for troubled boys. But it seems some of them were more troubled when they left than when they arrived.
Being at Knowlview destroyed my life.
Almost from the day it opened, pupils were subjected to physical and sexual abuse. But many of the boys here were considered bad lads, troublemakers. If they found the courage to speak out, few were prepared to listen.
I was scared, knowing nobody was about to look after me.
People are listening now.
It's probably one of the most horrific instances of institutional child sex abuse. Absolutely awful what went on, and it went on for decades.
Two lads brought me into these woods here. They tied me to a tree, they pulled my pants down, and then they left me there all night till a member of staff found me in the morning.
This man was 11 when he arrived at Knowlview in the early 1970s. We'll call him Michael. He says he endured years of torment, abuse by pupils and staff. This is the first time he's spoken about it on TV. He says this teacher, David Higgins, molested him and other pupils at the school.
I knew he was touching other boys besides me, because when some new ones came who were younger than me, he targeted them.
David Higgins was jailed in 2002 for historical abuse at Knowlview. So far, though, he's the only person convicted of offences at the school. 2 decades after Higgins first abused boys here, sexual and physical abuse was still rife. Martin Deegan was the first person to bring the scandal to public attention. But he says he's paid a high price for doing so, both personally and professionally.
I've got to put a warning out to whistleblowers. Be very, very careful lest you lose everything that you've got.
I first met Martin Deegan almost 20 years ago. He worked at Knowlview and had stumbled across confidential documents which shocked him to the core. The documents, written for the council by health professionals, revealed how boys were abusing one another and being abused. They'd been dabbling in prostitution and had been ferried into Manchester to have sex with adult men. Deegan wanted to tell people what had been happening at Knowlview, and BBC North West Tonight provided an audience.
Good evening. A council stands accused tonight of failing to help boys subjected to sexual abuse in one of its special schools.
I got dragged into my bedroom. He did something to me, and I was hysterical. I was scared, knowing nobody was about to look after me.
Details of the night that intruder gained access to Knowlview are contained within the confidential report. 20 years on, Knowlview School is no more. The site where it once stood is now occupied by housing. But while the school buildings have disappeared, the feelings of anger, resentment and injustice experienced by those who say they were abused within its walls certainly has not gone away. Now, in 2014, the police are carrying out 2 separate investigations. The first into the allegations of abuse. The second aims to establish whether the establishment attempted a cover-up. Sadly, it's all come too late for Ian Broomhead.
I asked for attention of the police, counselling, tests. I didn't get nothing. Nothing.
He was raped by a man who'd gained access to Knowlview in 1990. A year after recording this interview with me in 1995, Ian was dead from a drugs overdose. His rape was among the shocking incidents catalogued in this report compiled for the council by a clinical psychiatrist in 1992. It was a report never intended for public consumption. But Martin Deegan put paid to that.
My intention was, in the initial stages, to get some help for the young people that documentation made it clear I'd been offended against.
What's been the effect of all this on you personally?
Let it be a warning to all whistleblowers, David. I was the only person in April after I reported things in November '94 to be made redundant. I think that speaks for itself.
Almost 2 decades on from my first report on Knollview, the school returned to the headlines once again when this happened in November 2012.
The MP for Rochdale is calling for an investigation into claims that Sir Cyril Smith, who represented the town in Parliament for 20 years, sexually abused teenage boys.
Rochdale's Labour MP Simon Danchuk spectacularly denounced his predecessor, the late Cyril Smith, as a serial child abuser. Smith had been a founding governor of Knollview. Michael says he was indecently assaulted by Smith at the school during the 1970s.
And he picked me up and cuddled me, and then he sat me on his knee, and then he put my hand between his legs.
Simon Danchuk's revelations about Smith inspired Martin Deegan to try again to get justice for the victims of Knollview.
I outed Cyril Smith as a child abuser, and soon after that I had a number of people come to me, ex-police officers, victims, but also Martin Deegan, and he explained to me, he brought a dossier with him and told me all about Knollview.
So once again, these documents, compiled for the council in 1991 and 92, have come under scrutiny. Their shocking narrative tells of a school where abuse and depravity were apparently a way of life for many pupils. The police were aware of the allegations, but no one was prosecuted. Greater Manchester Police say they're now determined that those who escaped justice back then are finally brought to book. In fact, only today GMP revealed that so far 24 people have come forward to say that they were abused both physically and sexually at Knollview School. So far, 21 suspects have been interviewed under caution. Their ages range between 35 and 80. And the police say they're still trying to trace other potential suspects, trying to establish whether they're even alive. But it's always been Martin Deegan's belief that Rochdale Council tried to bury the bad news of Knollview. So who at the town hall was aware of the scandal, and was there really any attempt to cover it up? Earlier this year, the council announced it had asked an eminent lawyer to find answers to those questions by undertaking an independent inquiry. The Liberal Democrat Paul Rowan says he did see the documents soon after taking control of the council in the summer of 1992. And what was your reaction when you saw the report?
Shocked, concerned obviously, felt there had been some failures, people had not been looked after properly.
What support did you offer as an authority to these young lads who had suffered all this trauma?
I was told they'd had some counselling. I know that officers were at the school quite frequently.
And yet, some of the boys we've spoken to say they got no support.
No, and I accept that, but I can only repeat what I was told at the time.
In July, Greater Manchester Police asked the council to suspend its inquiry into allegations of a cover-up and said its officers would be taking over. Rochdale Council says it's cooperating at every level.
It's like the house mothers.
For those who experienced Knollview at first hand, memories remain raw. What effect has what happened to you here had on your life?
Being at Knollview destroyed my life. You see new houses, I don't see new houses, I see Knollview School. I really do. This school left me scarred for life.
And you can hear more of Michael's story and testimonies from other Knollview victims tomorrow on Radio 4's File on 4.